This video covers how to change a drive axle in a Mazda 626.
Okay, so we're going to change out the front driver's axle. If you don't have any impact tools and you're doing this by hand, you would set the tire on the ground, you would remove this decal on the wheel, and you would then use a very large breaker bar and remove this axle nut. Count the rotations so that when you do put it back on tight, you can go just a little bit further to kind of get a rough estimate of what torque you want to go to. Since I have a really awesome Ingersoll rand, I can leave it up in the air and go ahead and just bolt this, back this guy out and take off the lug nuts. Then we're going to remove the axle nut. This one is a 32 millimeter. Ta-da! Take a mallet. Make sure that your axle can be tapped out. So you can see that there is some motion. Later you can pull it out. Alrighty, next step is we're going to remove these two bolts that are connecting the knuckle to the strut, and those are 17 millimeter, so we're going to break those guys loose and just back them out. Then you're going to pull off the brake line clip. And you can use a set of pliers. And you can just pull it off like so. I like using leverage for everything because I don't like to work too hard. I'd rather be smarter about it than have to muscle everything off. If you're having difficulty getting these off, you can put your jack underneath and jack it up and down to give you some help. What I do is I just kind of use a wrench to an open-ended wrench, and just wiggle it out, and that does me quite nicely. You'll also at this point want to keep a bungee cord nearby, because you're going to bungee cord the knuckle out of the way so that this isn't stretched out too hard on the brake line, and then you'll have room to swap out the axles. Alright, you want to have a jack or a jack stand handy, because you're going to pull off this knuckle and you're going to rest it on the side, and then you're going to use your bungee cord and put it up on the McPherson strut so that you can securely get it out of the way without damaging this brake line. So you're just really going to separate the two and pull it off to the side here. Then with your hammer, you're going to give the axle a nice tap. So now you can wrestle the axle out and out of the way. Alright. And I'm just going to bungee cord it just so it won't cause any added stress. I don't know, I won't have too much drama. You're going to slide underneath and you're going to pry it out with a pry bar or hammer it. I'm going to pry it towards the outside. It's going to take a little bit of effort to get it over the C-clip. So what I like using is just one of these pry forks, or as Maggie likes to call it, a tuning fork. Just kind of put it into place and hammer it up, and it will just force the axle out. So we'll do some very light tapping. And then you can pry the rest of it out, and you're gonna want to keep a drain pan near to catch any trans fluid that's gonna come out with it. Alright. And then you just pull it out. So you'll notice on the end of the axle there is a C-clip, and what you're going to want to do when you put it in is just make sure that everything is perfectly straight, and then give the axle a good tap, because if you come at it at any sort of an angle, it's just going to make it really difficult for this axle to slip in. So you'll put it through the small valley in the plastic paneling and then slip underneath to guide it. You're just going to line her up. Maybe. You're going to attempt to line her up. You're going to look goofy while you do it. Careful, be really careful not to damage the seal that holds in all the trans fluid, because the splines are pretty sharp and they will actually, in a hurry, damage that seal, and then you'll be pulling your axle back off and replacing the axle seal. Not fun times. So I'm just gonna reach underneath and grab my magic hammer. And I'll just move the strut out of the way and get it as straight as you possibly can. And tap it in. Slide back under and check. You're getting closer. Whoop. There we go. And now we're in. And if you just make sure that everything's lined up as it goes in to the trans, everything will be nice and happy, and it'll slip in, and you're just gonna have to give it a good tap, and she'll slap right in. If you had to do ball joints, now would be a great time. You could also do your sway bar end links pretty easily from here, but we're just gonna actually assemble this side and put it all back together. So pretty straightforward. You're just gonna get the axle back into place. So we're just gonna tweak this guy, slip it right in. All right, great. So we're just gonna pull this down. Careful not to damage the brake line. You don't want to pull that too tight. And you're gonna get the axle in place, line up the splines, and then get it back into place. We're gonna pull that off now, and you should be able to kind of walk the axle in until the end of the shaft sticks out. So now we're going to switch back to the front view so you can see how we're putting everything back together. All right. So now you're going to take your jack and put it right on that lower control arm, and you're going to jack everything back into place so that you can line it up and easily bolt it all back together. And if you're having difficulty getting this top piece in, just remember that you can move everything around and line it up. You have your clip that was holding on your brake line, so you want to get that back into place. Then you can just take a hammer and tap it back on. Put your bolts back on. And you'll also want to put your axle nut back on. So you have your 17mm guys. Actually, more space up front. Just going to come at it from this angle. And then I just put my close end wrench. Get that nice and snug. And then do the same for the bottom. The axle nut. And then you're going to want to make a notch in this outer side of the nut, and what that's going to do is going to help prevent this axle from walking off. At this point, you're just going to reassemble. If you're doing this at home, you're going to leave the center cap on the wheel off, put the wheel back on, lower it down onto the ground, and then with your torque wrench, you'll do your final torque, and then you'll pull the wheel back off, hammer it down, everything will be cool. If you have someone who's in the car who applies the brake, that's a huge help. It'll ensure that you get the proper torque in. So put your wheel back on, tighten up your lug nuts, and you're good to go. Thanks for watching.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.